Well, it looks like we're live. Hello out there. Welcome to Bitcoin Generations. Hey, y'all. We have surprises today, and I just wanted to let you know that we are running a little bit behind schedule today. I would say but I am going to be uh, taking off the first part of the show here. I'm going to be introducing you to some things. Jor's going to be joining us, I think, in a little bit. He's got a meeting that's running late. So with that, oh, stand by. Speaking of the man, the myth, the legend himself,
Hi, Bodie. Are we live?
we are live. We are now live. You're fashionably just in time. We are
I
live.
wish I wish I could say it was my fault, but I actually had a meeting at our usual start time, and it was the guy actually was 14 minutes late. So we managed to get it in. I was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting. It was a 16-minute meeting, but he was 14 minutes late. So
Don't you
I'm
love that?
sorry.
That's I have no problem. We've got a whole list of folks here making comments, so we're gonna be accountable to them, I think here. But
Good
anyway,
stuff.
yeah, I got a couple things that some good questions that I was gonna put out there. Some content that I heard you talk about today, and obviously there's some things going on in the world that we definitely want to just maybe touch base on real quick. But as we bring this content to new Bitcoiners and baby boomers, that's kind of the thrust of our show here. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's in the chat, all the people that are coming back to see what we're doing here at Bitcoin Generations. Acknowledgement to all y'all. Clean your machine. Buck 52,000. They're just there's a bunch of them. But so anything you want to share before we go before we dig into it? Anything interesting?
I mean, it was kind of interesting where I was. I was actually just in a meeting with a guy from MicroStrategy. So kind of cool. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it or allowed to talk about it, but that's okay. I will. I mean, we didn't really. There was not a whole lot of there was nothing signed or anything in place. So, anyways, I saw it was a guy his name is Ed. I think he's the business development guy at MicroStrategy. And so I reached out to him. He put out a tweet a couple weeks ago looking for like Bitcoin educators in the space. So I just sent him a direct message, sent me a link to talk. And so I just was chatting with him for the last 15 minutes. So I kind of doxed him for being late there, but that's what happens when you kind of book meetings back to back. Some of them run over. And so I totally understand from Ed's perspective there. But no.
Let's see. I am. How are we doing on our connection here? Let's see. We got our. Are we doing okay on our connections? Looks like you froze there, brother. You were telling us about just whatever you could tell us about about your meeting with the new actually the new brand that they have. It looks like you froze up, Jor, and I am live, but I know you've got the link, so you'll join again as soon as you can. But I just wanted to kind of catch up with him, see what we've got going in the wings here with if there was anything he wanted to share. I'm sure he would do that. He'll join us back here in just a minute. I'm if he can. But just also wanted to shout out. We got Jay. We got Pipeline. We got Clean Your Machine. We are live. And Donnie Myers is in the chat. Welcome, Donnie. We got the Maze Man. Oh yeah. And Crypto Chris. Okay. And there's Joe again. There he's back. He's back. Welcome back. You know,
sorry about that.
No, don't worry. You know, every time we get together, it's always me. I'm the one that has the technical issues. And then if you have a technical issue, I'm like, woohoo, big win, because it wasn't me this time, right?
I knew that was a little bit overdue. My computer was running really hot there, and usually when it starts running hot, it just says, sorry, that's enough. But I see the Rabbit Hole recaps on right now, so we're competing with them, unfortunately, but that's okay. How come we're so small in here, Bodie?
You know, that's operator error. Yep, operator error. Thank you.
Where did I cut off there in terms of what I was talking about? I looked over and I was frozen.
So you were describing he was about 14 minutes late, and you weren't sure if there was anything you could share or not share. I don't know if there was anything significant that you wanted to at all, but if there's anything you wanted to talk about, feel free.
Did I talk about the MicroStrategy world that they're doing? Is that where I ended off, or did I even get to there?
I don't think you got to that.
So basically, he kind of had three things in mind. So he's a business development guy for MicroStrategy. He's trying to build out their Bitcoin stuff. And basically what he said is all their employees there, because you have to keep in mind they are a software company, right? And so their employees are all, just developers essentially and software people. So what he's trying to do and what they're trying to do is basically, orange pill their employees as much as they want to be, right? They want to provide the resources there for their employees to learn about Bitcoin, because it's the thing that's making a lot of them very rich off of their stock options right now. So they basically dedicated an entire floor at their MicroStrategy headquarters, or Strategy Now headquarters, for Bitcoin developers, companies, educators to kind of just use whenever they want to for free. So that's a pretty cool thing that they're doing there, which wasn't as applicable to me being in Canada here. But the other thing is they're just doing like an advocacy. So they're trying to find people who can help orange pill their employees, essentially. So that's what we were talking about with Ed. And I kind of gave him a bit of a background about me and the channel and everything. So I don't know if anything will come out of it, but it was still good to meet him. Just, maybe in the future we'll do something together. But I just think it's a good, for anybody out there who's in Bitcoin, I think the more things you can do like that, even if it doesn't really amount to anything, I think is just so beneficial for your own personal network. I think that that's the biggest part of people's overall life is the network and the people that because you never really know when you're going to need them or they're going to need you or vice versa. Right. So it's like.
Absolutely. No, you make a great point. There's, like you said before, there's the Bitcoin, the digital asset, and then there's the Bitcoin network, and they're both like, it's like hand in glove, works really well together. And it's great. It's great building the network. It almost any reason, for whatever kind of work you're doing, it's great reason to build your network.
100%. And that's, when I was a CPA working in the accounting world, that's the one thing that I focused a lot of my time on, which was very uncharacteristic of like accountants. Accountants, for the most part, they have a one-track mind of like, do this journal entry, do this Excel spreadsheet. But I was out there, trying to meet people, trying to meet lawyers, trying to meet with financial advisors, because all of these people have people who need accountants in their life. Right. And I think for whether you're an employer or you have your own business, you should still be actively trying to get new business either way, whether it's your company or you're an employee. But if you're an employee, most people think like, well, I'm just here 9 to 5. Who cares? I'm going to go home, not think about it. But if you can bring more business into that company, your job security is going to be there. Plus, you're going to be looked at favorably from management, and you're probably going to get a pay increase. So I think that your network, regardless of what industry and what you're an employee or a business owner, it's vital.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and no matter whether you're the bottom feeder which I've been, you've been, doesn't matter where you are in the scale of, the top to the bottom, Michael Saylor's, he's bringing value from the top. He's leading from the front at the top of his company. But if you're the bottom worker, you're the worker bee in your company, and you bring value, you bring something that nobody else has, you bring knowledge that maybe your CEO or something doesn't know, you can find out quickly, are they interested in something that they don't know about? Can I help you help
Yes.
us? You can put that out there and see if they're open to it. And if they are open to it, there's a door opening. Now, what you do with that opportunity really depends on itself, but to bring the value, no matter where you are, it's great as a
Yes.
business owner, or as a the most minor person, and really that's kind of serving other people in a way. You're bringing stuff. This is not something I don't have to tell you, but this because you do it every day for all the listeners.
Well, I mean,
So,
it's true. And I think that if you kind of dial in on the value aspect of things there, I like looking at it that way, because yes, in my situation, my day-to-day life depends on how much value I provide to others. It's on my time though. Nobody's telling me what to do. I kind of have to figure out what people are looking for. The demand is there, and then I have to add value to that. And that's when I get value in return. But if you're an employee, that's a really good way to look at it, because if you're building your network, you're going to meet new people. You're going to find new business for your company. And essentially what you're doing there is adding value to your company. So I think that that's a really good law of nature that everybody should be following. That's one thing that really changed, opened up my eyes in the last couple of years, is like the amount of value that you receive is in direct proportion to the value that you add to the world. And there's no shortcuts there. There's not.
yeah.
It's kind of a proof of work thing. It ties really well in with Bitcoin in terms of the proof of work aspect there. But don't expect to get value from other people if you're not adding value yourself. It's just there's no mismatch there. It's perfectly aligned. The amount of value that you add, you get back in return from eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it right there with the word expect. Expectations. What is it? I don't know if anyone who's has ever done any farming, or if they have ever heard of Joel Salatin, but he has a son, and Daniel Salatin now runs Joel Salatin's farm. It's called Polyface Farm, and they're in Central Virginia. But he has a quote, and he said, "The most common failure in relationships is unexpressed expectations," right? And so, if you're not communicating those things, not to get off on the rabbit hole and go down this whole road here, but which I do quite a bit, but I would just say that, a lot of times we have expectations, right? Unexpressed, unreasonable, whatever it is, it's expectations. And it's like, well, okay. So anyway, I won't beat that dead horse. I know that there's a lot there we could go into, but there's a ton of things going on in the world right now. And I want to transition, if we can. Are you ready to transition into something else? Anything else you want to mention on that?
No, I agree. I do think that those three things, if people can kind of take away anything from the first 13-minute G show here, is just do your best to add to your network, whether that's in-person meetups, whether that's on Nostr, whatever it is. Grow your network, meet new people in Bitcoin, outside of Bitcoin, because you never know when you're going to, when they're going to be back in your life, and you can maybe add value to them. But that's one. Two is add as much value as you can. It's going to flow back eventually. It's not going to be the day it happens or the week that it happens or the month, but eventually the value that you add to the world will flow back your way. And the third one is a very important one, Bodhi. I think that this is also something I've learned recently, is to really manage your own expectations, because that's the only way that you're ever going to be let down in life. It's not, if you get to a point where you don't have any sort of expectation from anybody, then you're never going to be let down. And it's a very hard thing to do, but it should be, as long as you can kind of comprehend that in your mind, in terms of, if it's your spouse, if it's a coworker, if it's anybody you're working with, if you just kind of get rid of all expectations, focus on what you can do and what you can control, then you're going to have a lot less stress in your life, because it all comes from the expectations, like you said.
You know, I'm a father of 6 children, and I have chosen that, right? And I have one. Well, I have several that have special needs, but you know, like sometimes we have an expectation that like I'm ready to, we're gonna, my kid is like here, we're gonna, and like, and it doesn't matter if it's kids or dogs or whatever it is. I mean, it's other people. Whatever it is, it's not here. It's something else somewhere else, right? And it's like, oh, so yeah, it's just like we learn these things, and this is the this is the life that we have, right? And so I'm thankful that it humbles us, and we need to be humbled. And it's good. It's good training. It's good because that whole process is something that those people that we've been talking about, who the elites who have no idea, they run the show, they do all this stuff that doesn't even enter their worldview. And I'm like, no, I love folks that have been through some fire, that have some refined, understanding of life and, others. And I don't care what, where they are on the face of this earth, what they look like, who they are. They're human beings. They have a pulse, and we have some things in common. So this is a great equalizer, this Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
And whether or not we, can get up to speed and actually learn. Are we open to learning? That's one of the keys that we're going to just segue into right here. I did want to mention one thing real quick. Parker has a question. He wanted to know if we were going to be in Vegas in May. I think that's still to be determined, but I know I can only speak for myself. I'm planning to be there. We'll let you weigh in on that if you know or not. You may still haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, I'm not 100% yet, but I still am planning on going. So okay. I'm going to try to make it work. I got to book a flight. I got to get a ticket. Ed was actually talking about Vegas, and he said that they're trying to sell 50,000 tickets to the conference. And so to me, he didn't sound very confident in their ability to do that. So to me, that suggests that there's probably going to be some tickets on sale. They keep increasing prices, but they can only do that for so long if they're setting this thing up for 50,000 people and there's not that many tickets sold. So okay. We'll see. I do really want to go. I just have to be very careful with, costs. When you're a Bitcoiner, you gotta watch the costs, because those are precious sats that you're spending there. So.
That's right. That's like, if I could live out of a suitcase and, in a tent, but it's hard to do that with,
yes,
with my crew. Yeah. But, one of the things that you said today, and I refer back to this because, I want to talk. I'm always thinking about, like, what can we talk to new Bitcoiners about? How can we, like, and yes, there are the elemental baby steps, right? And these things about, how to buy Bitcoin and the concrete steps to take. But the mindset is what I'm trying to get to right here. And the mindset that you brought up earlier today on your other show, I want to touch base on that, and I wanted to ask you to kind of summarize. And I wanted you to speak to this just for a couple minutes about, because I got two of them here. And the first one is going to be this one. It's the quote: "If you think Bitcoin is here to stay, you should probably get a seat in the arena." Okay. Now, I don't know if some of the people in the chat may have heard this before, but like, let me just share something. I have something I want to share, and it's going to be, as you respond to that, I'm going to put this up on the screen.
So you just want me to elaborate on what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that actually wasn't my quote. I forget where that came from. I didn't think of that, but I saw it somewhere before. And I mean, Sailors talked about this before in terms of it's the only game that all you have to do to win is play in it, right? Because that's essentially what this ties into really well is just get a seat in the arena, get some skin in the game here. Because for your average person who's looking at Bitcoin, I think it can be a very scary thing just because it's so unfamiliar. And if you surveyed 100 people on the street and said, do you want $100 of cash or do you want 1,000,000 sats? And I'd be willing to bet that the majority of people would take the $100 cash, even though the 1,000,000 sats is probably worth 10 times or more than the cash aspect. But people understand cash. They've dealt with it their whole lives. It's easy for them. They're comfortable in that world. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means that's in their own head. That's their perspective of the world. That's their view that they had. And so they would say, I'll take $100 cash. And you'd say, why? And they would say, well, because I don't know what Bitcoin is. I don't understand it. I have no idea. I wouldn't know what to do with it. Right. And so that's kind of where we are right now, where you have this very small subset of people who are like actively trying to grow this adoption here and educate people on what this thing is and why it's so valuable, why we should care about it.
Yeah.
And then you have like 99% of the world who's like too busy. And I get it. Like the fiat world is kind of at the end of its, last leg here in fiat in terms of like a small group of people printing money. That's what we're transitioning out of right now. But 99% of people are still in that world.
Yeah.
But if you ask those people, if you ask the exact same question to those people, like, do you plan on buying Bitcoin in the future? Or do you think that this is going to be a long-term thing? I would say the majority of them think, yes, it will be here, for a long time. So if you're one of those people who are like, I don't understand what Bitcoin is, but I think it's part of our future, you should just be focusing on getting a seat in the arena. Because if you don't, you're going to miss out on this whole thing that happens here going forward. And so that was kind of my lead into it. But then I said, why it's pretty much here to stay now. And there's really nothing that anybody can do about that. So you might as well, even if you're not a believer in it yet, or, understanding it's going to be here for a while. So moral of the story, you should probably get a little bit of Bitcoin.
Well, I'm going to transition to another the states in the United States that have they're introducing legislation regarding their own strategic Bitcoin reserves in the states. But the reason I wanted to go into this is just to encourage those people who they know about Bitcoin. They're maybe intimidated by it. But the concept of getting a seat in the arena, as I understood how you were speaking about it, was you don't have to be on the playing field. Okay. You don't have to be on the playing field. You don't even have to be in the first row or the first tier of rows. The double, the double A seats, the ones that it costs, $15,000. You don't even have to be in the second row. You can be way up here in the nosebleed seats if that's all you can do. But the last thing you want to be is you don't want to be outside the arena. You don't want to be outside of this opportunity to have your assets grow and be able to preserve what you have, maybe what little you have, to preserve that for your next generation. Because if you're my age, you're not thinking, more than 20 or 30 years down the road. Probably not going to be such a, 80, 90 years old, maybe.
No, it's true though. It's true. Very true.
It's reality. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Because I totally understand, where I'm going when I'm all done. And I'm good with that. Totally good with that. Had a great life here so far. I'm going to have more great life. And there's other generations, our progeny, our descendants coming behind us. They're coming. They will come. If we don't drink the Kool-Aid about, the world's overpopulated and all that fun stuff. Okay. But No, more babies, more babies. Everybody have more kids. Okay. But you baby boomers, you new Bitcoiners, get a seat in the arena. And I don't care if you're up here in the nosebleed section, just get on this train. Okay. Now.
No, that's really good. I'm glad you kind of went a little bit further with it there, because it's important to understand that just like seats in the arena, there's only so much Bitcoin. And I think that that's another important part of it too, is like in the traditional sense of the world now, you could create this beautiful arena and you could bring people into it and everybody would be all excited. And then you might say, oh, you know what? There's more demand here. There's a lineup outside the door. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to build a new arena. We're going to build a bigger arena. So the people that had really good seats in this one, now they're up in the nosebleeds because there's, you know, more rich people who want to get in front of them. That's how the system that we have now works. Whereas Bitcoin, there's going to be one arena built. There's going to be so many seats in that arena. And you're either going to have a seat or you're not, because there's going to be no ability to expand that arena in the future. So absolutely correct in terms of the generational thinking here in terms of Bitcoin stuff. And I think that it's, you kind of said that it's an asset that grows over time. I don't necessarily think that that's the best way to look at it. Okay. I think it's an asset that your purchasing power grows over time because of its scarcity, because there's only so much Bitcoin. And so when you have the world's energy, the world's productivity, everything's being repriced by this scarce asset. That's why your purchasing power, if you're holding a small part of that Bitcoin, it's just going to grow. So if you had one Bitcoin today and you put it in cold storage, it's not going to grow. It's not going to be 1.5 Bitcoin in 10 years from now. But the amount of things that you can do with that Bitcoin that you have in 10 years is going to be much greater because of the scarcity, because 99% of people are still showing up. There's only so much of it. And that's very basic economics of, regardless of how much demand is there, the supply cannot change. So the price can only go up. And you're essentially there, your purchasing power, your ability to store your time and energy will not only maintain, but will grow over time. So you're exactly right. I just wanted to correct that one small part of it, because I think that's important to kind of, communicate with.
No, that's great. No, that's great. Thank you. On that note, and I will say that, so it gets down to generations, right? And my daughters, I have 2 daughters, and they've been hearing me talk about Bitcoin for a long time. And one of my daughters has a little bit, but she has it on an exchange, and I won't mention any of that because, we've had conversations. You need to get that off the exchange. Well, the thing that I did is I was like, okay, we're going to do this a little different. I'm going to like prime the pump. And so I decided to give them, I planned to do this at Christmas time, but it wasn't quite time then because we had other things. But recently I was able to gift them a little bit of Bitcoin. And what I did was I showed them how to, the first daughter, we did this, and the second daughter, where I also got her going too, but I didn't get to spend as much time with her. Got her to establish an account with Strike, and so I'm teaching her all about just the stuff that's on that app. Just like, this is what this does, this is what that does. If you want to do this, this is how you go into Lightning. This is how this works. The basic 101 version of it. And I go, and you don't have your bank account attached to this yet. I'm going to send you some sats. I'm going to send you some Bitcoin right now. And I'm going to do it right here with you. And so I got her Lightning address, and I sent her some sats, and I was like, look, here it is. I just pressed go. And then it went ding over here on hers. And she was like, she lit up, and it was like this whole like, oh wow, I know a lot of people have had that kind of like the aha moment, but for her it was really kind of special, because I wanted her to see that this is actually, and the only condition that I put on that was, okay, rule number one. That's the only condition I put on that. And rule number one, you know what rule number one is. Rule number one is you never want to sell your Bitcoin. Never. Just don't. Just don't. You can do whatever else you want to do. You do what, plan for whatever else, budget however else you need to, but you never sell your stack. Now, if you're now, there are some caveats to that, and we know what those are. But for her, she's like, she's working and she's doing stuff. This is something that's kind of like her little savings account. And I said, that's what that is. That's your little savings account. And as you learn about Bitcoin, you're going to learn how valuable that's going to be to you going forward. So now they're both kind of starting to go. And, so orange pilling by force kind of thing, Here you go. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
No, I think that that's a great exercise, because if you really think about things, in the traditional sense, like when I was growing up, we would get, $5 to go to the general store, or, $20 a week for allowance to pay for some candies, whatever that is. Like, everybody got allowance for doing chores. I think most people kind of were raised that way. And I think if you look at it two ways, I think this is a very clear image for people to see in their own minds, is like, if you had how old is she? Over 18, I'm guessing?
She's 18. Mm-hmm.
So let's use a 12-year-old for example here, somebody a little bit younger. So if you had a 12-year-old and you were giving her allowance every week, $20, and she was either holding cash or she was putting it into a bank account. That's how most people still today do their allowance stuff. So either that $20 gets absolutely pissed away, which kids love to do, a little bit different as an 18-year-old, but like a 12-year-old, they would just go waste that on the stupidest thing ever. So it's just like, you might as well light the money on fire. Or they're smart enough, they put it into a bank account and they put it into a savings account. And if she kept it there from the age of 12 to 22, she'd be doing all right. But like, think about it, $20 a week. So what is that? $1,000 a year, 10 years, $10,000 total. So in that 10 years, she accumulated $10,000. But that's about it. And if you look a decade ahead, that $10,000, even though it accumulated over time, it doesn't buy a whole lot anymore, especially compared to when she started saving. But if you put that in Bitcoin for 10 years, $20 a week, like, you're sitting on something pretty significant there all of a sudden that's continuing to grow. It's not just locked in there in a constantly debasing world. That even though the value is going up, the amount is going up, the things that you can buy with that is actually going down and down and down. And the longer you left it there, the less you'd be able to buy with that. Whereas Bitcoin is basically the opposite of that, where you can put it in here, it's going to grow over time, historically has. And again, if you believe in Bitcoin's going to be around in 10 years, it's going to keep doing the same thing, because it's just code. It's just simple math. So that thing's going to be worth a very sizable amount, and it's going to continue. The longer you hold on to it, the more it's going to be worth. And dollars, the longer you hold on to it, the less it's actually worth. It's completely different.
Yeah. It's the melting ice cube, right? It's like, oh, the melting ice cube. Oh, it feels so good. It's in my hand, it's nice and cool. And, it's like you feel the sensation of it and you're missing the whole point. Like, after that melting ice cube is gone, your money's gone.
Yeah.
It's toast. I've got a comment here. Troy says this. He goes, so when my pa passed, he left some money to me. I'm 85% Bitcoin, the rest in MicroStrategy. It's for my prodigy. I have no plans of selling for years. I know my kids can't save in this economy, so this is going to them. Okay. So before you comment on this, I would just encourage Troy to do what he's probably doing. And that is, he's probably kind of trying to teach them the concept of saving. Even though, it's a futile exercise with fiat dollars, but the concept of saving, it's like, well, okay, we need to learn how to save. Now, saving sats, saving Bitcoin, you're still saving. Saving fiat dollars, you're absolutely right, Troy. There's not going to be, it's a melting ice cube.
Yeah, and I think that the best thing, the thing that I would say to somebody like Troy there, who is going through that, like, definitely Bodhi, I think the best play is to, like, from very early on, that said the prodigy years, so the kids, But you have to build that. This is something that takes a lot of time to do. You have to build their conviction, or not build their conviction, build their knowledge around it. And as their knowledge grows, their conviction is going to grow alongside that. But the nice thing too about Bitcoin, you have to remember here that it is programmable. And so if you had a situation like that, Troy, where you had a significant amount of Bitcoin and you had, say, young kids, but you wanted to make sure it got to them, you can actually program it in a way where maybe half of it's unlocked, but you lock half of it for the next 20 years. You put a time lock on it where no matter what, if you haven't had time to educate them and grow their conviction, they still can't access that for at least 10 or 15 or 20 years. By the time, if something were to happen to, in this case, Troy, and he didn't really have the ability to manage it himself, because when you're gone and you're the Bitcoiner in your family, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, make sure you have some sort of multi-sig if you have that amount of Bitcoin. You don't have to do it tomorrow, but start looking around in terms of like how to get it set up, where to start, who to look for, and who to talk to about it. But absolutely, you should be looking into like a multi-signature kind of setup for that. You want to remove your single point of failure when you have that kind of money in Bitcoin. And then the third thing is you should actually be talking to somebody about inheritance stuff and maybe setting up a will for sure, but also maybe a revocable trust. These are the things that Bitcoiners need to be thinking about. Most aren't, but especially with the sizable amount of money like that, like Troy's talking about, you should have kind of those things in place because life doesn't really happen as we expect it to, right? And so we need to be prepared for things to go south.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's one thing that's for sure. I mean, but taxes may no longer be a big thing here in the future. We'll see how that goes. But there is one thing, and that is end of life. So end of life is a part of life. So, as I was talking about kind of orange pilling my daughter, I was talking about I used the Lightning portion of the wallet to send some sats to my daughter, and Bobby says that yeah, but they have to understand Lightning address for a start. Well, I would push back on that a little bit. I would say that I don't think she has to learn about that just yet. That will come. This exercise for her, it was to introduce her to a tangible part of this. I actually timed this so that they had heard me almost to ad nauseum, heard here, but they didn't see it here, and you know how Bitcoin is, it's like, it's kind of hard enough to understand because it's, in the cyberspace. But, once you get your head around, okay, it's actually a thing in cyberspace. It's actually, there's a lot of computing power that has to generate this. Yeah. So that's where I was going with that, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the second thing I would say to that is I would also push back a little bit. Who's that from in the comments?
So
Bobby?
that was Bobby.
Yeah. Like this is, she doesn't have to understand what the Lightning Network is, right? Like if anybody out there, it doesn't have to be Bodie's daughter or Bobby's daughter or anybody, if I wanted to send you Bitcoin right now, I could say, go to the App Store, download the Speed Wallet, press copy, send me that little thing that looks like an email address, copy and paste that to me, and I can send you Bitcoin. That's it. You don't have to go to the bank. You don't have to put in your identification. You don't have to do anything for it. You don't have to download this or set up an account or anything like that. You just basically download an app, you copy and paste your Lightning address, and I can send you Bitcoin. From there, you have to protect it. You have to know what to do with it after that. But for the most part, how could it be any simpler than that? It's free to do. You don't have to pay for it, anything. You just get it for free.
And one of the things that I love about Lightning, or there's some different terminology here. Let's see. But liquid, Lightning. Okay, don't get bogged down by the terms. But the beauty of what I showed her was like the analogy that I gave her was, okay, and I have a fold card here, but I said, when you take your debit card and you put it on the thing and you tap on the thing and it just like bing, it's like approved, green light. Okay, you're done, right? Well, that's how fast this goes. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, watch. And I showed her, and boom, there it goes. And that's all it takes. It's just like, it works. Yeah, it does work. It really works. And you know what? The beauty of the Lightning Network is that you have your regular layer one. Okay, don't get pushed away by the terms, but you have your layer one Bitcoin layer one. That's the blockchain. If we had to put every single transaction that was ever known to man on the blockchain, it would wear it out. It would not be worth it. It would cost way too much. So it's like freeway. You don't need to put all the traffic on a freeway. You need to have side roads. And that's what this is. You know, the Lightning Network, these other things that they're building, and it's under construction still, right? It's all being built right now.
Yeah.
But this other stuff works really well. If you only have to go from here to here and you only have this much money that you need to spend, do it. Do it that way.
Great analogy there. Yep. I like that. The other thing I was going to say on that too is with the Lightning and stuff like that, it is basically, if you just think about it like this, without all the technical side of things, layer one is basically where the important information is going to be stored. And just like Bodhi said there, when you're tapping your phone at a retail shop, what's happening there? Like, there's not actual dollars going from your phone into the retailer, right? There's nothing physical coming out of there. It's just data. And that's all that Bitcoin is. It's just data saying that I had this amount before. Now I bought this. Now I have less than that. This amount that's in here is now belongs to whoever owns the store. But the other part of this too, and I think we covered this in a previous episode, but definitely worth noting again, is that the difference there is if you're the shop, let's say that Bodhi's daughter went to buy a coffee with some of her sats, or she decided to pay for it in cash instead. She goes and taps her card on the coffee shop. It comes out of her account instantly. But it actually takes a couple of days for that money to actually show up at the coffee shop's bank account, because it has to go through her bank. It has to go through the Visa processor. It has to go through Square, maybe. It has to go through this bank. It eventually takes 2 or 3 days to settle. That's when the coffee shop owner gets paid. 2 or 3 days later, finally settles. But if she would have paid with Lightning there, and the guy had a Lightning wallet open, she sends that payment. It comes out of her account instantly, but it also shows up in his account or their account instantly, and it's final settlement. That's a pretty big deal.
That's a big deal. And the cost to move that money is, okay, when it's on chain layer one, that's a different conversation.
Right.
But when it's on Lightning, how much does it cost to move? It's not
pretty much zero.
It's almost zero.
Yeah.
Not quite zero, right?
Less than a penny.
That is light years better than what we've got right now. I mean, you get a check today. If I send you a check, Jor, and you deposit it in your bank, you have to get it, you have to sign it over, then you have to go to the bank and you have to physically deposit it. Or if you want to do it electronic deposit, it takes extra time to deposit. But that is so antiquated and so like last year and so inconvenient. Nobody likes that anymore. We know better now, right?
Yeah, right. And even from the coffee shop's perspective, like, I own a business myself, and every time somebody makes a purchase using Visa or PayPal or anything, there's a fee on that, like 3%. We have to pay 3% just for somebody to be able to pay us.
Right.
3% every transaction. It might even be more than that, honestly. Yeah. That goes to the Visas, that goes to the Shopify's, that goes to, nobody knows that when you're buying things from a business, you don't see that side of things. But every time a business accepts a payment on Visa or anything, they have to pay 3 to 5% just to facilitate that transaction. With Lightning, it's pretty much zero.
These credit card processing companies, I've mentioned them once before on this show. I have seen sort of the inner workings. I didn't work there, but I knew some people that worked there, and there was a smaller company that used to be in the town that I lived in, And the guy who owned the company, at first, I thought, oh, he's really stand-up guy. And as I got to know him more and more, I was like, no, I'm not impressed. And so I was just, all that to just say, the credit card processing industry is a major. I mean, there's sharks in that water, big time. And after all the stuff we know now, about everything else, there's sharks everywhere anyway. But I just wanted to, just kind of mention that that there's no need to be in that system. Okay, maybe we can, maybe it's time that we kind of head toward the exit. Are we on a complete Bitcoin standard yet? Well, I my hat is off to you guys who can do that, but I can't do it just yet. I'm heading that direction, and I've got my feet still in that water, but I can't get it to where I'm completely exit just yet. But I'm getting to where I'm preparing to where I can, and that is I just also wanted to talk about this this other comment here. Clean Your Machine. He goes, I'm curious about this topic. I think forcing it on my grandchildren is okay. Learn it or don't get it option. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing where the time lock would come in handy, something like that.
Yeah.
Or don't give it to them. But the thing is kind of why the inheritance side of things, why the time lock, all this stuff is very important. And for a show like this, for the people who are going to be listening to this, I think that the one thing to kind of take away from all this stuff with the time locks, with the Lightning Network, with the layer one, with the better for businesses, with the scarcity aspect of things here, I think the main takeaway from all this is just really how all-encompassing Bitcoin is. And you can't ever explain Bitcoin to somebody in like one or two sentences or like a 2-minute elevator pitch, because it basically affects every single impact in our life. And the beautiful thing about it is it's pretty much better at anything that we have right now in every aspect of it. And so the real disconnect right now is the fact that most people just don't understand that. But that doesn't mean that it's less valuable than it is. That just means that they're not there yet, but they will be. And once they come and they understand what's here, what they're sitting on, what's the potential for this thing, that's when it gets really exciting. And I still really believe that, if you're looking at Bitcoin at 90,000, 100,000, 110,000, it's going to be a complete rounding error in a couple of years from now. Like nobody's going to care what they bought it at. All they're going to care about is that they got some. And when you're sitting there, like Clean Your Machine, when you're sitting there in 20 or 30 years on your rocking chair and your Bitcoin or your grandchildren are all gathered around you, asking you questions, the only question that they're going to be asking is how much Bitcoin did you get? Because they didn't have the opportunity that we have today. It's pretty clear. It's never been more obvious. It's never been less risky that this thing is going to succeed. It's almost impossible. And maybe we'll get to that in a second, because I have a couple things that I talked about earlier of why that's the case.
Okay.
But like this thing is going to succeed. And it's not nobody's going to care if you had XRP or real estate or bonds or Apple stocks or anything. They're just going to ask you one question. How much Bitcoin did you get?
Fair enough. Absolutely. Well said. Let me move through a couple things real quick here. So there's some people in the chat that really like this topic, and I really want to shout out Paul here for
super chat,
giving us a super chat. Paul, thank you very much.
Cheers, Paul.
And I love the snowboarding, picture. Yeah, that's great. Nice. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Paul.
Troy's got he's thankful for some advice there. Paul's also saying, I have no idea how the Lightning works, only main chain. I would just quickly tell you, don't worry about it just yet. Okay. Stack as fast and as hard as you can. We'll provide resources so you can learn about the Lightning Network. And, there's a lot of resources on that, but don't worry about that just yet.
Should we maybe cover it quickly? Because I think there's kind of not an easy way to understand, but here's the thing with Lightning. For me, again, I've been in this space for just about 5 years-ish, and it took me a very long time to really wrap my head around Lightning, and I was definitely overthinking it. And I'm finally at the point now where, unless you can really explain it to people, you don't really understand it. So basically, Bitcoin layer 1 is the one that's going to be used. Okay, so where can I start this? Maybe I don't understand it like I thought.
No, it's okay.
Bitcoin layer 1 is the network. That's the Bitcoin network. That's the main thing that kind of like, it's the foundation for Bitcoin. It's what everything's built on top of, and it's very secure. It's very, it's vital to this whole ecosystem that's going to be built off of this. So Bitcoin layer 1, if I wanted to send you Bitcoin from my wallet to yours, that's a Bitcoin layer 1 transaction.
And that's the one with the 20,000 nodes, and everybody who runs a node keeps that ledger. Okay, go ahead.
Right. That's like the immutable ledger. And if you send a Bitcoin transaction on layer 1 and it gets put into a block on the blockchain, it's going to live there forever. That information, that transaction is going to live there forever because it's immutable. It gets broadcast out to 20,000 plus people around the world. They all have a copy of this ledger. Your transactions on there, that's going to live there forever. That's a big one. But the thing is if you went to a restaurant to pay a bill with Bitcoin, you don't really need that transaction to live on the Bitcoin layer 1 forever, right? So layer 1, it costs a little bit more. You have a transaction fee that's dependent on how busy the layer 1 network is. You have a transaction fee. It takes longer. Blocks are approximately 10 minutes per before the next block is mined, but it's a lot more secure. Yes, this is a very good visual for layer 1. This is all the Bitcoin layer 1 network, the mempool. So if I were to explain this to somebody looking at this visual right here, do you see those green blocks on the left side? There's a little dotted line there right in the middle. Those green blocks to the left, that's the mempool. So that's like a waiting pool of Bitcoin transactions that are waiting to be put into a block. And once it crosses that line, it gets put into the blockchain and added into there, and it's going to live there forever. So when you send a Bitcoin transaction to somebody on layer 1, basically what it does is it goes and it sits in the mempool. And until you set your transaction fee high enough, your transaction is just going to stay in the mempool. But until your transaction fee is high enough where a miner says, okay, that's a good transaction fee. I'm going to pick this transaction up. I'm going to put it in this block. It gets confirmed, broadcast out to everybody running a node. Everybody has a copy of the ledger. It's in there. So that's layer 1. Again, more expensive, slower, much more secure. It's going to be used for like bank wires as we use them today, bank wires, like very important transactions, larger transactions that you want to live on forever, essentially. Paying for a bill at the restaurant doesn't fall into that category. You're not going to be buying a meal using layer 1, right?
Okay.
So that's layer 1. And if you think about Lightning now, Lightning, as Bodhi explained, is kind of a side road. It's a layer that's built on top of that. And so Lightning just right off the hop is faster. As Bodhi explained earlier, basically within a second, it arrives there. Final settlement within a second. The fees are very low, but it doesn't have that same kind of like gonna live here forever kind of thing. It doesn't get, held and secured and stored by everybody. So if you think about the Lightning Network, so you got layer 1, all the Bitcoins on there, the amount of Bitcoin will never move from that. And a really good visual, and I think that this, I don't know, I don't want to go on too long about this, but I think this is a really good visual for people to kind of think about here. So if you had and it was actually Paul who gave this one to me, but if you had if you think about walking into a post office, right? You walk in the door, post office, there's a bunch of mail slots in there. Think about those mail slots as Bitcoin wallets. So you can walk in there, you can see how much Bitcoin is in each mail slot because it's all transparent, it's all in ledger, you can see it all. But unless you actually have the key to that slot, you can't move the Bitcoin. This is all layer 1. So it's all going between slots. If I wanted to send some Bitcoin to Bodhi, I would unlock my mail slot, I'd take out the Bitcoin and I'd put it into Bodhi's. So the thing to know about that analogy though, is that the Bitcoin only moves slot to slot. It never leaves the post office because there's only so much of it. You can't create more. You can't bring in new Bitcoin. How much is there? That's all the Bitcoin. So it's either going from my slot to Bodhi's, it's staying in my slot, it's going to my slot to Paul's, but it's a really good visual of like how you can see all the slots there. It's very transparent, but unless you actually have a key to move that, you can't do anything with it. You don't actually own it. So that's all layer one. And then layer two, or Lightning, is essentially you take some of that Bitcoin and you actually take it off of layer one. So you take this, let's say you have one Bitcoin that you want to be using with Lightning. You want to set up a Lightning pool, essentially. So you take that one Bitcoin off the layer one. It shows from, going from layer one to this different spot, this pool. And you can actually now use all the Bitcoin that you took off the layer one, and you can send that around without paying the fees. It's not going to show up on the main ledger there, but you can still send it around. It's still real Bitcoin. And then whenever you want to settle that, whenever you want to close down your Lightning channel, that Bitcoin goes back onto layer one. So any Bitcoin that you're actually using Lightning with is actually off of layer one network. So as Bodhi said, layer one's kind of like the main highway, but the busier it gets, the more of a fee you have to pay. So you can kind of find side roads to go around it, like tolls, right? Instead of paying the toll to go on the main highway, you can, for a cheaper way, you can take a side road. Same kind of thing. So essentially you take the Bitcoin off of layer one, you put it in like a Lightning node, and then you can use that to send Bitcoin around to anybody because it's off layer one. So it's not treated the same, although it is the same. It's also Bitcoin. So again, my point of saying this, as Bodhi mentioned, you don't have to understand it. It takes a while to really wrap your head around. Just understand how useful that is, though. If everybody tried going on the same road, paying the same toll, you get very congested. So you need these side roads. They're important.
Let me just jump in here real quick. I've seen some stuff in the chat, and the guys are talking about Lightning, and it's really, it's really kind of like a really deep and good explanation is really valuable, and we really need a good, and I would just kind of do a pulse check here and just like remind everybody, like, because I remember when the internet first came out. And I remember when email first came out, okay? And I remember when everybody was like freaked out about using a credit card on a website, okay? I was there. I lived through that. And I would just remind everybody, like, you guys, take a deep breath. We are early, okay? This thing called Bitcoin is there, okay? Bitcoin, there's no, it's there. It's layer one, the blocks. I mean, it's the Lightning network is I'm technically not skilled to speak about this, but I would say that the Lightning network and all these ways to this road construction on all these side roads, if you will, you'll go with that analogy. It's being built. Okay. It's not finished yet. It's happening. And actually it's working. It's working, right? The Lightning network is working, but there's more like efficient side roads being built. Yes, there's all these things that, Fedi, we could go into this way deep, but for the guys and the gals who are listening to this podcast, who are like, whoa, I'm way over my head already on this Lightning stuff, and I don't understand this. I would like, take a deep breath. Like, I've been here before with the internet when the internet first came out, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what an HTML is, and like I've got to know. It's like, well, yeah, we'll get there. You'll know the sun's gonna come up tomorrow, brother. It's gonna be okay, and we'll get there. So. And the beauty of 2025, or, like too much information, not enough information or whatever, is that we have YouTube, and you can learn about whatever topic it is you're interested in, fixing this little tiny thing, or like learning about something like that's being built like right now. You can go find, like, you want to go deep dive on like what's being built right now on the Bitcoin, and the layer 2 and all this stuff. Get on Nostr. I'm telling you what, the people, there's a lot of devs on there, and a lot of the software developers, and those guys and gals are in it. They're building it right now, and they're raw with this stuff. They live this stuff. They eat and breathe this stuff. So believe me, you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want to go. But this explanation right here is about all you really need for right now, if you can trust me on that. But anyway, I know you have something else you want to talk about too.
Yeah, let's do one more thing on that. Bodhi, can you go back to the mempool there?
Yes.
Because I think that it's easier to kind of see.
Okay. Let's see. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, no problem.
Make sure I go back to where I was, and there we go. Da, da, da. Lots of screens, lots of things to do.
And Bodhi's absolutely right. I think that I've kind of spent a lot of my time listening to different people try to explain Lightning. Watching different channels, watching different shows. It is very hard to wrap your head around it for sure. But the one thing I would say is just try it. And the biggest lesson for me was opening up a Phoenix wallet where you actually have to fund your own Lightning node. It's different than just like downloading a Speed wallet where they basically do everything for you. If you actually go through the process of setting up your own kind of Lightning node, essentially, you'll see a much different side of things. So anyways, if you click the top there, Bodhi, there's a little lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Very top.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see there right at the top, it says capacity there. It says 5,138 Bitcoin. So what does that mean? It means that 5,138 Bitcoin has been taken off of layer one, not by the same person, but by a bunch of different people. They've taken that 5,000 Bitcoin, they've taken it off of layer one, putting it onto the Lightning Network. And that's basically what's being sent around at light speed for very low costs. So it's that specific 5,000 Bitcoin. If somebody opened up a Lightning node with 5 Bitcoin, that number would go up. If somebody shut down their Lightning node and stopped the channel, that would go down. But that's kind of just a good kind of visual of it in terms of how much Bitcoin is actually being taken off of layer one right now. And that's what people are using to send around. And you can go pretty deep into this. Like you can run a node, you can fund it. And basically, if any Bitcoin payment passes through your channel, you get a little routing fee for that. It's a little bit, again, maybe too much information here, but I think it's good to kind of set the foundation for people to understand that Lightning is Bitcoin, but it's off chain,
right?
Off of layer one.
Yeah, no, it's like you've taken it out of your savings account and you put it in your checking account.
Exactly. Yep.
Easy. Yeah.
That's a very, very simple way to think about it and fairly accurate too, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, so like, for a lot of people, I keep going back to boomers, anybody, if you've got, your life savings in a savings account somewhere, you don't have a debit card on that and spend it out of that account. You move that usually to some sort of like thing that you have a spending account with, and there's all different forms of that. But I think what we're learning is this, that's why education is so important. And you don't have to be an expert to do this. Like I'm a novice at this, right? But I know that there's other people my age that are absolutely like, they're like sleeping.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, wake up just a little bit, like drink some coffee. Hey, we got to talk about this. This is something you do not want to miss. Get a seat in this arena, right? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we could probably do this show every day, but I know you have another life.
I do this show every day.
You do this show every day. I'm like, I'm having trouble keeping up once a week.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to know is like, there's just so much. And I think that, the more touch points you can have with these kind of things, the better, right? Like you're never just going to be able to completely ignore Lightning and then decide one day you're just going to open up a book and read what is the Lightning Network. No, it's going to come from 20 different touch points. This is going to be one of them. When you use Lightning for the first time, that's going to be another touch point. Maybe you watch a video on somebody explaining it, a different way. That's going to be another touch point. So it kind of builds up over time. It's nothing where you just decide one day I'm going to learn Lightning. Well, yeah, you might have like an okay understanding of it, but unless you've done it like here, there, and on the Bitcoin Generations channel, they're all just touch points as part of your own kind of Bitcoin journey. But I want to give a shout out here to Parks23. Said, love seeing you guys. New subscriber here from Regina, Saskatchewan. Gen X newbie in my Bitcoin journey.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. Regina is actually where Bridge is from. My girlfriend is from Regina.
Is that right? Have we ever talked about, well, we'll have to do this another time, but, yeah, my wife's family's from British Columbia, the West Kootenays,
Oh yeah,
Lower
beautiful.
Arrow Lake, and, they're Castlegar area.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and some in Alberta too, right? Now, you can't forget the Albertans. So anyway, glad to see you guys here. Wonderful.
So
Okay.
what's next? Should we talk about, do you got anything else you want to talk about, or should I revisit some of this stuff? I'll probably summarize it. I might direct people to maybe watch the clip if they want to hear it again, but I think this stuff is kind of important. But is there anything else you want to kind of mention in addition to this stuff?
Just a couple of quick ones. The one that's, 63 million millionaires in the world today, and there's only 21 million Bitcoin. Okay, food for thought, right? If you're on this train, you're gonna be able to make a big difference for your family and for the future generations.
Just very, very simple math. If every millionaire in the world, even if they wanted to, they can't own one Bitcoin. If it was equally distributed between all the millionaires on Earth, they would get about 1/3 of a Bitcoin. A millionaire.
And I would absolutely. I went back and I listened to that other show that you did, that breakout portion of how to get to 1 Bitcoin. That was very subtle.
Yeah.
Very subtle, very good. And I thought, man, that's gold, man. Gotta better than gold. Gotta take some notes on that one. And in fact, I started my own spreadsheet. But the quote, the money you can't afford to lose versus money you can afford to lose. So money you can afford to lose was what we've been hearing for how many decades, right? Only invest as much money as you can afford to lose, because man, it could go right to zero. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin or whatever this thing is. But the recent quote is now money you cannot afford to lose. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is credit to Michael Saylor too. He's been a pretty big part of my Bitcoin journey for sure. A lot of people out there. But I think traditionally speaking, if you went to your financial advisor, if you're somebody who just like thinking about allocating some of your portfolio to Bitcoin, and you said, how much of this portfolio should I put into Bitcoin? The majority of these financial advisors would probably say something along the lines of, well, it's very risky. It's very volatile. It could go to zero. So what I would suggest, because I've done 0 hours of research on this, what I would suggest is I would probably only put in the money you can afford to lose, right? The money that you don't care about, maybe an old savings account from when you were 20. Let's put that in there and see what happens. So that's traditionally what the advice for most people, and especially baby boomers, would have been receiving from their financial advisor. Keep in mind, these people have put in 0 hours to even try to understand what Bitcoin is. 0 hours. They don't care. They don't want Bitcoin to succeed, because when their clients are taking their money from their portfolio out of that portfolio, that fund, and putting it into Bitcoin, the fee that the financial advisor gets paid goes down now. So they don't want Bitcoin to succeed. So they've spent 0 hours in it. They don't understand it. Their advice is only put in the amount that you can afford to lose. But Saylor, just like everything in Bitcoin, has basically flipped that on its head. And he says, only buy Bitcoin with the money that you can't afford to lose, which is a whole paradigm shift. And if you compare those two people, where's that advice coming from? Somebody, an advisor who's making money off of your money staying in this fund, who spent 0 hours learning about Bitcoin, versus somebody who has spent probably 10, 12, 14 hours a day, been on MSNBC, been on hundreds of podcasts, spent tens of thousands of hours trying to understand this, converted a public company, public software company, into a Bitcoin treasury company. That's who's giving you that advice. Which one are you likely to listen to when you're trying to figure out how much Bitcoin to get? So what's he's essentially saying there is, like, only buy Bitcoin with the money that you want to have in 100 years from now. And again, going back to like our earlier example here of Bodhi's daughter or a 12-year-old, it's the exact same thing for people, for a 50-year-old. You know, if you put in $1,000 a month into a bank account, a savings account that you're going to leave to your kids, or you're investing in the markets or whatever that is, even though the number's going to go up, the amount of things that you can buy with that money is going to continue to go down, because every dollar that they print, every dollar that they add to the money supply devalues yours. So every dollar that you put into that, even though the amount's going up and up and up, the things that you can buy with that are actually going down. So he's saying, if you actually want to maintain your purchasing power for 10 years away, 50 years away, 100 years away, here's something that's going to store your time and energy, this battery called Bitcoin. That's the only wealth. Only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. Only the money that you want to have 100 years from now for your generations to come. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's a perfect battery. It has 0 leaks in it. So that's why he says that, because everything else is going to eventually lose as they continue to print more and more dollars and continue to devalue your wealth.
You know, this is you know, thanks. Paul has given us a super chat.
Another
again.
one, Paul?
Another $10. It looks like to me.
I thought that was the same one. Thank you, Paul.
Well, you know, it looks like there's one up here at 306.
No, that's right.
You're right. Then another one at 340. You know, there's so many good things here. You know, I don't want to, you know, take a crap on financial advisors, but because you know, some of them, I think they're kind of like, well, I think, you know, they kind of like a lot of us, you know, they're kind of like, this is the training that you will get, and this is what you do. Because I trained as a little bit as a, you know, I got my Series 6 and 63 way back in the 90s, late in the 90s, and I was looking at becoming a financial advisor and stuff, you know, as a side gig, you know, and I got into it. I was like, you know, I just don't have the patience for this, and this I cannot, you know, I don't want to build a book of business and then, you know, just kind of siphon off the top. I mean, I'm, you know, I like making stuff. I like doing stuff. I like to, you know, and I was like, you know, this is a whole industry of people that just, you know, they just kind of like, and as Jimmy Song might say, you know, rent seeking, you know, I don't know if you've got familiar with that term, but rent seeking is an interesting thing. And I won't go down that road, but it's kind of like people like, you know, and I don't want to, you know, shake too many boots here, but, you know, there's a lot of different kind of roles that people have in the fiat world. And it's like, do you really produce anything? Do you really make anything? Do you really add any value to people, you know, in any real tangible way? And a lot of them, you know, when you really get down into it, it's like, not really. So, you know, I just love that, you know, we're trying to just, I mean, this doesn't pay very well what we're doing here, you know. It's
well, like, Paul's trying.
We're trying
his best.
Right. We're trying to bring value so that people can see this hard asset that's here. So anyway, I wanted to let you continue on with the thing you want to talk about. But first, before you do that, you have to tell us all, how is Arnie doing? What's he up to? Is he out in the yard doing something he shouldn't be doing? What's going on with that dog?
He's sleeping.
Arnie, can you hear me? Arnie. Oh, he's pretending like he's dead.
He's a very, I mean, he spends all day with us here. So he's almost like a human. He's not like other dogs. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that say that, but it's true. Like, we spend every day, every hour with him. And so he knows when I actually want his attention versus when I'm just messing with him.
There he is. Oh, there's a big yawn. Big yawn. Arnie! Way to go, Arnie. Yes. Good boy.
My co-host, my trusted co-host. So yeah, no, that's, I think that's a pretty good way to put it in terms of the financial advisors. I mean, you just have to, everybody probably can relate to something like this. And, you know, I've been talking about this a little bit on the show and in the podcast, but you should do your best to like align yourself in life with lifelong learners. I think that that's important because that's to me, that's who Bitcoiners are. They're people who are interested in learning. Because if you weren't, you're not going to spend you're not going to spend 1 minute in Bitcoin. So you can apply that to like your business partners who you interact with day to day, your financial advisor. And I think that everybody can like think of this kind of person in their life, maybe a few of them, like a 55-year-old, 60, 65-year-old financial advisor. You know, they did a lot of work 20 years ago when they were picking up the phone and finding all these new clients. But since then, it's just been like, okay, well, this fund looks kind of good. We'll move it over here. Oh, we'll take a fee off of that. They spend the majority of their days talking on the phone with their clients to maintain their relationships. They're not actually in the trenches figuring out what the hell is going on here and what's coming next. So if you align yourself, and there are financial advisors out there who are learners, like I work with a few of them. So I'm not saying that this is every financial advisor out there, but there are a lot of people who have this book of like 50, 100, 150 clients. And all they do is talk on the phone all day with these clients. They're not learning anything. They're not trying to move their clients forward. They're just taking a fee off of that every month or every year. And they're, buying yachts and stuff like that.
Oh, they're on the golf course too.
Or they're on the golf course, which I'm a fan of myself. I spend a lot of time there, but in the winter when it's minus 35 here right now, I'm in the trenches right now. So, but I think that's just good advice. Align yourself with learners. And I think you're going to get much further ahead because it's the people who want to grow, the people who realize that there's more out there than what they're aware of, and they want to push the boundaries on things. So that's good advice. I think just align yourself with learners.
We've got some Paul and Julia Stryker says financial advisors hate Bitcoin.
It's true.
And Ballsy Golf, a welcome Ballsy Golf. He's a familiar name.
Mm-hmm.
Wife's financial advisor does not like the Biddy or Strategy B. They have been trained to stay in a certain lane. And I mean, you can't really blame them. I mean, when their whole business model is to siphon off the top, that's what these funds have been doing, and it's designed that way. Yeah, no, not having
it's tough. Like the average stock index or fund generates like what, 8, 9, 10% max. That's like a really good one. Where inflation is like 15% a year if you actually look at the real objective data. So you're losing. And not only are you losing in that sense just to inflation, but you have an asset like Bitcoin, which is returning 60% per year for the last 15 years or more.
Yeah.
That's your hurdle rate. That's what you need to compare to. If you're in the stock market, yes, your stock balance is going up 8, 10% a year, but you're losing 50% to Bitcoin. And that's what people have a really hard time wrapping their head around, is that Bitcoin is the new hurdle rate for everything else. If your project, if your fund, if your investment isn't performing better than 60% a year, you're losing. Objectively.
Do you have I don't know, we're going to start to wind down here, I think, in a little bit, but unless you have something else, I wanted to kind of touch on this one thing that we have, and that is something that's kind of currently going on this is for the person who is, and I don't care what age you are, if you're new or if you're not new, if you're willing to be open to understanding what is going on right now in the United States. Let me share this screen with you. This is, I want to definitely share. This is the states in the United States that are actually looking at adopting a strategic Bitcoin reserve for their state. Okay. And this is the most recent one I could come up with. I believe it's 15 states. So, this is for the person who's like, Bitcoin, yeah, whatever, it's over there. You guys are excited about something, it's like, no, listen, the United States, the federal government is talking about this and is making steps towards making this happen. that there will be something. They're not wanting to get to specific about it yet, but they have indicated in the past, and Trump has indicated in the past, that there will be something along the lines of a stockpile or something along the digital assets. And he kind of tiptoes around the exact terms that, but well, I wouldn't say that he tiptoes around anything, but I would say that that he's intentionally not specifically saying the word Bitcoin in terms of as it's related to a digital assets like stockpile or something equivalent. My point in showing you this right here is that, folks, if you haven't seen what is going on in the states right now, these states right here are advancing this kind of legislation to be signed into law so that they can adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve in their state. Now, it might look different in different states. It might be called something in different states, and some states might be like talking about it rather than advancing it quickly, right? So it's very state specific, but this is a really good sign for the United States because states' rights. There was a time where states' rights was more important and a bigger deal than the federal government, and there's a lot of us in this country that are very interested in having the federal government reduce their power and increase the state's power. So there's that. But I'm just trying to show everybody that this is something that you might have an opinion about this, but there's a lot of people in this country that are moving this forward. Your thoughts on this?
I think it's just another example of like the fact that this thing isn't going away. It would be different if there was like one rogue state here. Let's say it was Florida. They're like, okay, we're going to buy some Bitcoin. Everyone's like, cool, way to go, Florida. You're being weird like usual. But in this case, there's 15 on here. I think there's 17 overall now. Donnie in the chat said that Arizona and Utah signed it into law today. So this is like a conservative effort that's moving forward here. And so it just kind of goes to show that if you do believe this thing is going to be around in the future, get yourself a seat in the arena. Like, understand what's happening here. Understand that every state is going to be holding Bitcoin. Every country on earth is going to be holding Bitcoin. Every company is going to be holding Bitcoin. And irregardless of how much demand, how many states, countries, companies want it, we cannot create more of it. You cannot increase the supply of this thing. And so as the demand piles in, the supply doesn't change. Very simply, the price, the purchasing power is going to go up over time. It's impossible to go against that. So you got that. That's one part of the thing here. The second part that I would say is that Bitcoin now is a $2 trillion asset cap, market cap, which means that the total amount of Bitcoin out there that exists, which is about 19.7 million right now, are in circulation, times by the price, that's the market cap. So that's $2 trillion right now. There has never been an asset in history that has reached the $2 trillion market cap and then failed. So that's really important for the people out there who think that this, is going to go to zero one day. There is never in history before that there was a $2 trillion asset like Bitcoin that has failed. The third thing here is that Bitcoin is the only asset to have gone down 4 times, crashed over 50%, but then rebounded back to an all-time high. So it's happened 4 times. I think it happened in 2010, 2013, 2017, and 2021, every 4 years essentially. And the next one would be 2026. Will that happen? I don't know. But I guess it'd be 2025. I don't know. Anyways, it has gone down at least 50%, but then rebounded to a new all-time high, which to me suggests that this isn't a bubble. This isn't something that is like people are excited about. There's a bunch of people running into. It's like a Ponzi scheme. It goes up and then it crashes. That's happened 4 times, and it's actually rebounded back to an all-time high after that. So the purpose of these conversations here, the points here, is like this thing isn't going away. And if this thing isn't going away, it's only going to become more valuable. The network's only going to get stronger, more secure, more powerful. And we cannot create more of this stuff. So we have a very finite amount of time here, a very small window where we can actually get as much of this Bitcoin now while we can, before the big companies show up, before the states show up, before the countries show up. We have the ability to do that today. It's not going to be around for much longer. So there is some sort of urgency here in terms of where we are right now.
You know, something you said too was that, you know, you get this while you can. The window is open. You know, there are still seats in the arena available, but the concept is that you made on your other show too, was that there will come a day where you won't be able to buy sats
Yes.
for US dollars.
100%.
I mean, no, you really, I think our audience really needs to let that sink in. You know, wait, you, what are you talking about? You know, like, no, I can always buy something. I can always buy something with dollars. Dollars is the premier, you know, currency on earth, right? Well, it is until it isn't.
Exactly.
Okay, it's maybe time for some fresh coffee. Let's get into this. No, I mean, you're winding your day down. You know, no, I absolutely, I want our people to let this stuff sink in, to think about the generations, to think about your kids, think about your loved ones, think about wherever you are in your life. If you need help with Lightning, you need help with inheritance planning, you need help with stuff like this. You know, I'll have, you know, Jor's content, his information in the show notes. You can like and subscribe to our channel. Would love to have you on Bitcoin Generations, but I'd also like you to go to the 88 Sats Radio and subscribe to the Bitcoin Journey. You know, I mean, the value that you're getting with just, I mean, I don't want to pump it up. I just want you to say, let's just go check him out. Go check him out. I mean, you want to talk about value. He brings it every day. And so anyway, your thoughts on kind of like where we are right now. I mean, we kind of need to pinch ourselves. And I love this conversation we have. And I appreciate you and your time. So what would you like to, how would you like to kind of carry us out of here? If you're ready.
Yeah, no, there's just a whole bunch of different ways you can go with it. And I think that, you know, I think that the majority of people who would be in the live chat right now probably already have some Bitcoin. The one thing I would say though, is just start sending these videos. I know that they're a little bit longer, and I know it's hard for people who have no idea what Bitcoin is to, you know, to take some time out of their life to replace watching the Kardashians tonight and watch two guys talk about a currency for a while. I know it's hard. It is. And that's like the whole struggle here. And that's why it's taken so long for people to really understand what's happening here, because it is so boring. Not boring, but it's difficult, and it's different, and it's change. But I just think that if people really saw this as an opportunity instead of like, you know, just another thing that they have to do. If you see this thing as an opportunity, which is what it is, you know, Bodhi's thinking about this. I'm thinking about this. You're buying Bitcoin for your last name, not your first name. That's great. But the nice thing too is we now have a guy in the US, Trump, who's Bitcoin friendly, who's crypto friendly, who's not going to make us wait and fight and, you know, be tortured for 20 years trying to push this thing forward. We're going to have people helping us now. But, you know, the more opportunity and the faster this happens, the less we're going to eventually end up with. Because as soon as countries start buying, as soon as states start buying, and as soon as the Apples and the Microsofts and the Tesla already has some, but NVIDIA's, as soon as they decide that, you know what, we've got to a point now where we need this. It's not like something we want to be an early adopter with. We need this, and if we want to survive, then it's over. And one of the things that I've been saying on my channel is like, if you are in Bitcoin right now, whenever Trump announces the Bitcoin strategic reserve for the US government, I want you to take a look at your wallet, your total amount of Bitcoin, because that amount isn't going to change very much after that. The dollar amount's going to go up, but in terms of like the actual sats and the Bitcoin amount, it's hardly going to move. And so just understand that between now and then is the opportunity to be accumulating as much as you possibly can. And whatever that looks like in your life, whether you're selling some other investments, some things that have been stale, you're going to have some unfortunate conversations with your advisors and with your bankers and stuff like that. But it doesn't matter. You need to focus on yourself here and your family. It doesn't matter if you're going to piss somebody off. You have to be taking this stuff seriously, because this is a very small window and it's not going to be here for very much longer. And so you do have to grow a set of kahunas here and have those difficult conversations, and just understand that this is the only asset that's going to matter in a decade or two from now. And you have to be a part of it. You have to get a seat.
So, so I gotta ask you this question. That is, so a lot of us saw the other night, President Trump and President Netanyahu from Israel in the briefing room as they were up there talking, and Trump announced this came out of like left field, the whole idea about going into Gaza, the United States of America taking it over and developing it. Right? Okay, so I don't see a lot of people saw that coming. Now, that might have been planned for a while behind the scenes, but there's a lot of us that were kind of like, what? Like, okay, how? That's kind of like, like I could just see explodey heads all over lots of different places, right? But, there were some people that were kind of like, okay, so take that scenario and go and apply it to this and go, before he announces something along the lines of a SBR or a crypto stockpile or whatever he's going to do, we're not sure exactly how it's going to look yet. Do you think that there could be something along the lines of like something out of left field to where it might be able to be like, okay, we're going to give you guys a chance to get in this thing. Here we go. Okay. We, for 3 months, you're going to, do you see anything like that going on? You kind of know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. And one of the things I've been saying on my show is like, I thought that Trump was going to move very quickly with this, because as we've seen for the last 2 weeks, he's not messing around this time. Like, he's moving fast. And I said, Trump's a business guy. He's a smart man. So he's not going to like announce that they're going to start buying Bitcoin and then take 6 months to do it. That doesn't make any sense. And some people will agree with this. I don't really care. Just like I do on my show. I don't care what people think, but this is my opinion on it. I think that Trump understands that this is not so much about the US government getting as much as they possibly can. This is about the average person getting as much as they can. And I think that Trump actually knows that whenever he announces that the US is buying Bitcoin, it's officially over for the average person to be able to accumulate a significant amount of Bitcoin. And so I do think that everything that's happening here is, if you're paying attention at all right now, you're converting everything that's fake in this world into the only thing that's real, which is Bitcoin. And so by kind of prolonging this now, he's basically saying, you know what? We got this crypto digital asset team. We got the Lummis bill. We got all the states. Trump came out with a Bitcoin ETF plus today. I don't know if anybody saw that. But he's dropping all these hints for everybody to understand what's coming here. And he's giving people the chance, the average person, because that's what really matters here. It's important that we have Bitcoin, not that our government has Bitcoin, but that we actually have Bitcoin. It's going to be great for national security. It's going to be great for the long-term sustainability of the US. But at the end of the day, it's about us, the little person, getting as much Bitcoin as we can. And I honestly think that Trump knew that if he just came out and said, we're buying this amount of Bitcoin, it would go through the roof. And all of a sudden you'd be able to get like 1,000 sats for $1 would be, you get 10 sats for $1. And it would happen like that. And it's going to happen like that. So I think that this was kind of like the warning shot that's being fired of like, this is coming. If you're not paying attention, you're going to hurt badly. So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And I think it is going to just catch people by surprise. And the people who procrastinated and, decided to ignore this and just hope it went away are going to feel an immense amount of pain in the coming decades and beyond. They're going to have to explain to their grandkids why they didn't buy any Bitcoin back in 2025.
Yeah, well said. I absolutely, like Michael, like you said, Michael Saylor's been, jumping up and down, yelling from the highest mountain for 4 years. Hey, this is the thing. This is what we're doing. He's explained it how many different ways at Cantor Fitzgerald. He reduced all that down to 3 minutes for Microsoft, and they gave him the quick door exit door, okay. So, like we're just going to have to just keep going. We're going to have to keep going. We're going to have to keep doing education. We're going to have to keep, bringing people in to educate them and help them. That's something that you're familiar with. This is all ramping up, and people are going to need help. People are going to need, how do I just get a few sats, so, you can go back and you can rewatch a lot of the shows that Jor has done on 88 Sats Radio. So any new listeners that we have, anybody who's watching this after the fact, don't get caught in the weeds. Just understand that, there's a lot of knowledge that you need, and you can get a lot of value just by, because it's not like you don't cover, or like you have a big attitude and you only cover this much stuff. I mean, you kind of put egos aside and like, let's get into this. Let's talk about all this different stuff. And so I think that's really helpful. And the other thing is I think that our listeners need to know is that the integrity level is there as well. It's a very high level of integrity. I like the fact that on your show, you don't really, as far as I know, you don't really take on, advertisers or, sponsors in the way such that you'd rather have, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'd rather have the people just provide good service so that, if you've used them and you have a good experience with them, you might mention them. Right. And that's like, if I was talking to you, just one-on-one, you would do the same thing rather than try to, accept all kinds of money for something that, may or may not be good. I mean, we've talked to some people that have had less than positive experience with certain, entities out there, which is kind of shocking, honestly. I didn't expect that it would be that, but I guess in every business, you're going to have that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's important. And I think that you always have to question that in your own life, is like, whenever you're getting advice from somebody or you're trusting in somebody, you really have to consider who is funding them. And I think if there's been no better lesson than that in the last couple of days here with all the US aid stuff coming out, that's like the bigger picture of how the whole world works. That's the incentive structure of how everything works. But you can dial that into a very micro level too. And if you consider, if you're talking to somebody like a financial advisor and you're saying like, how much should I allocate to Bitcoin? Their incentives are for you to own 0 Bitcoin. For financial incentives, they want you to own 0 Bitcoin. They have this fund who's paying them to promote their products. That's their incentive. They're incentivized to show you this fund, to put you in this fund for their benefit. That's the incentive there. And with Bitcoin, for me, you could say that, well, Jor, you're kind of doing the same, because if I buy Bitcoin, that makes your Bitcoin worth more. But it's like, well, yeah and no, because either way, that Bitcoin is going to be owned by somebody. It's either going to be owned by you or it's going to be owned by the US government. And I would much rather have you own that Bitcoin than a government that I very much distrust, dislike, and want much less of in my life. So I don't stand to gain anything from everybody adopting Bitcoin, because this Bitcoin is going to be bought up one way or the other. It already is, right? You want to sell your Bitcoin? Think about this. You want to sell your Bitcoin? You can sell it in 30 seconds to anybody in the world. There's no shortage of demand for this stuff. So the reason why we're doing this is because we want the average person to be a part of this. because it's no fun if the governments own it all. It's not going to be, you know, what the true purpose of Bitcoin was here. So I see a couple comments here from 1/1024 who said each day I should own more sats than yesterday. I think that that's a really, really good way to look at it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's the right one.
Is that the right one? Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
And I think that, you know, people get really caught up in like, well, if I'm not going to own one whole Bitcoin, what's even the point? If you understood how valuable each one of these sats that are less than a penny right now are going to be worth in a couple decades or even less than that, you would think about this thing much differently. And you would just try to get as much as you can. Every time you have a fake asset like dollars, you convert it into real assets like Bitcoin. That's it. All you need to do. Know the difference between fake assets and real assets. And so if you have your goal there of every day's a little bit, it's good. It's good to do that. But I think if you look at over a year or 4 years, and at the December 31st of every year, you look at your Bitcoin, and if you had more than January 1st, you're winning. If you have any Bitcoin right now, you're winning. But if you every year, if you have more on December 31st than you had on January 1st, you're winning. That's it. Doesn't matter what price you bought it at. Doesn't matter what how much you spent or how much you bought. If you had more at the end of the year than you had at the start of the year, then you're on the right path. And a really good way to look at that is day by day, right? Because if you do it every day, you're going to do it year by year too.
You know, and I was, as you were talking about, you know, you can sell your Bitcoin in a flash, you know, and I was thinking of like the first thing I thought of was like the BlackRock vacuum cleaner, you know, but
yes,
but
exactly.
I would say, you know, Donnie Myers made a couple of comments. One up above there a while back. He was talking about, you know, what's your XRP prediction, and then he's got this one here. Do you think all the other coins are just a distraction from stacking sats? You know, I'll weigh in on this, and I absolutely think they're all a distraction. You know, it's like one of the things that I really like is, you know, it's like, you know, don't get distracted, you know, and you've got the, you know, the
Tiger vision.
The Tiger vision, you know, focus when Tiger Woods goes to putt, you know, and he's looking at just the actual line of the golf ball to the hole, you know, I mean, he's just, you know, I mean, that's what you have to do. And whatever you're doing in sports, you know, you play through these different kinds of things in your minds and stuff. That's how these guys get their game face on. That's how these guys are ready. Absolutely. In this space, in investing, you know, don't look at the big flowery thing that's going on here. What are these guys doing that you need to be like watching? What are they actually doing? What are they saying? What are they doing? And I've noticed that you notice one of the things that you notice is the demeanor, for example, of Michael Saylor, the, you know, President Trump. What is he doing? What is he saying? And things like that, because he's kind of, you know, I mean, he's kind of a guy you want to watch if he's going to be like the guy that's signing this strategic Bitcoin reserve. You know, what are the states doing? What is all this stuff? Where are all the moving pieces right now? Right. So I absolutely do think that these other coins are all a distraction. And, you know, they've got such a great circus going. I mean, it's very beautiful with rainbows and colors and flowers and exploding fireworks. What else are they going to do? You know, like they've got to come up with something to get your attention. I mean, it's heartbreaking, really. It's not funny at all. It's heartbreaking to see some of these people get absolutely rugged on and wrecked on this stuff because, you know, I've got family members who've even actually, you know, had struggles with, you know, they get in this thing and then it's like, oh, you know, it's just, it's an illusion. It really is. And it's really kind of hard to, it is hard to distinguish the Bitcoin information from all these other distractions, right? It gets all mixed up into this fruit salad. Not good. The noise is horrible, but that's where you have to get into doing your own homework. Many of these guys who are very smart have done their own homework. Jor's one of them. I'm hanging on his coattails. I'm like, you know, flapping in the breeze back here, the turtle in the back. I'm the guy that is very slow. Okay. But, you know, it's like one of the things that I do have is I have some wisdom between these ears. And I've worked the streets before and I have seen some absolute bullcrap. And I can tell you, I know when I see it. And anyway, so I'll just say, just finish it off by just saying that, do the homework, get into it. There's only a few more arena seats left available. That's what I would say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bodie.
So.
And I guess maybe just to close it out today from my perspective anyways, the one thing I would say, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying there, is like, I see Troy in the chat there. Larry Fink was an eye-opener. I think that if people just really like put aside, if you put on, get your Tiger Vision out, you focus in on Bitcoin. If you look at this thing objectively, what's going on right now? And I think if you look at something like MicroStrategy, I called it a canary in the coal mine today, because it is truly an indication of what's happening here right now. If you just simply look at MicroStrategy, like why are they so successful right now? Why has this public company with a share on the stock exchange, why has it gone up 2,000% in the last 4 years? Why? And the reason is because all of the big boys, all of the really big capital in the world, they want Bitcoin. They want exposure to Bitcoin, but they can't have exposure to Bitcoin right now. They don't have it within their regulations, their shareholder agreements. They literally cannot hold Bitcoin. And so they're paying a premium for somebody else to hold their Bitcoin for them through MicroStrategy. That's what's happening right now. Objectively, there's people paying 2x the amount of Bitcoin price to own a share to get exposure to it. Why? The banks, the central banks, the biggest entities in the world are owning MicroStrategy because that's the only thing that they can hold right now. So that alone should be the biggest indicator of what's coming here. That they want it, they can't have it yet, but the good news for you is you can. We can have it right now. We have the ability to own it. You can go onto Bitcoin Well right now and buy Bitcoin and send it to your wallet. Those guys can't do that yet, but they're trying to. And MicroStrategy is the canary in the coal mine. That's the warning sign saying that this big money wants MicroStrategy. The shares way up. They're oversubscribed on every offering that they do for a chance to buy Bitcoin. Like the big money wants Bitcoin. They just can't have it yet. So just look at that objectively and, use some common sense, use a little bit of logic, and you can see for yourself quite easily where this thing is going to. It's just most people don't have the ability to kind of like see the bigger picture here.
Yep. Now there it is right there. You mentioned them. They're a great resource. They've got some new things too. And I'm not sure we're wrapping this up. So we're not going to really talk about these guys, but I just wanted to make it clear that this is something that you can do. Get a seat in the arena. Let's make sure that we get on this train and get going. We're trying to be encouraging to everybody we can. Yeah. Okay. So you're seeing some of the comments that I'm seeing. But anyway, we can't thank you all enough. Thank you to Paul for the super chats. Thank you for taking time to step out here and to like and subscribe our channel. Find Jor in the mornings. He's there every weekday. You don't want to miss his shows. They're excellent. So
Thanks,
looking forward to more of these with you, Jor, and continuing our work together. It's good work to be doing. So
100%.
Thank you, sir.
The last thing I'd say is, Bodie, I know that there's probably a few people watching from the 88 Sats channel. So if you're watching from the 88 Sats channel, make sure you just go over, quickly search Bitcoin Generations in the search tab and subscribe over there, because we'll eventually stop doing it on my channel and just do it 100% on Bitcoin Generation. So we're just kind of making it easy for people right now to get access to the show, but there'll come a time in the near future here we'll cut this off and we'll be strictly on Bitcoin Generation. So thank you, Paul. We had the Zap stream going too. We had the Grinder zapped. We had Mark zapped a couple times, and Spaceman as well. So thanks everybody on Zap stream. I'm sorry I couldn't manage both here today, but we appreciate you being here. So thanks, Bodie, for the show again today. It was another great one.
Another great one. We got to keep these going. Yeah, it's a great work to be doing. So thank you, sir. Y'all have a great day.
Okay, thanks, Bodie. See you, everybody.